Um, page number 10 in the presentations book. Um, the first we will chant in Tibetan, each verse 2 times, and all the way to the mandala offering. The mandala offering we'll say in Tibetan 1 time, and afterward we'll say in English each verse 1 time.
Dropoy nanda shenla Kyubarasho Yedam Guru Ranaya Dayami.
In English, on page number 11, I take refuge. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. From now until my enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And by the merit created in this practice, may I attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness in cosmos. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyfulness. May all sentient beings divide in equanimity, feel bias, attachment, and anger. This ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, Mount Meru, encircled by the four continents, surmounted by the sun and the moon, and visualize this Buddha field and offering. May all living beings enjoy the pure land. Yeno Guru
Rana Mandala Kanaya Không nghĩ từ dành như dòng này đó tầm chếp Không nghĩ từ dành như dòng này đó tầm chếp Bỗng vì tầm bị chuyện như tầm chếp Vì cô tầm để là chẳng dễ lù Okay. So before going to start actual teaching for today, I would like to give a little introduction, briefly introduction, because I see some are new here. So I would like to give a little briefly introduction. Okay. So this is the book called The Intermediate Stage of Meditation. Yeah. And so it's important to us to learn about the dealing with on emotions. Yeah, because it's very important to learn about the system of emotion, because there are a lot of emotions there. There are positive emotions which are good, and also there are negative emotion which always are causes of troubles. So that's why it's important to recognize which are the negative emotions and how to deal with it and how to overcome and how to eliminate it. So that's why we have to train our mind. Yeah, through training of our mind, then we can overcome the negative emotions. Yeah, it's really important because we have a same desire that we always want to be happy, right? Yeah, so that's why we have to look at how can we bring the real happiness, right? The real happiness is not the kind of like the temporary happiness, like when we are hungry, we want to eat something. When we're cold, we want to wear something, thick clothes. That is the very temporary, right? Temporarily needed. But the most important thing in our life is the ultimate happiness. We really want to have a long lasting happiness, right? Not day by day happiness. It's also important in our day to day life. Be happy, joy, and everything is important. But the reality is that the temporary happiness is going to momentarily changing, and it can be changing into the other sufferings, like we call it the suffering, the changeable suffering, which is a kind of like temporary happiness that in after some time it can be a causes of other suffering, right? That is the not a real ultimate real happiness, what we want for, what we wish for. So that's why we have to look in the ultimate happiness, long lasting happiness, the real peace in mind, right? That we really can achieve that through the train our mind. Yeah, so how we have to train our mind? So we have to train our mind, avoid it as much as possible from the afflictive emotion, the negative emotion. Yeah, if we can free from the negative emotion, then we really can have that peace, the real happiness, right? If we can do that, it's It looks like very simple that if we can free from the negative emotion, then we can be happy. But it's not an easy task. Yeah, because the negative emotions are at the moment is a very powerful. It's simply like dominant, yeah, dominant of our minds, right? That all by the negative emotions, because those are very powerful, right? From the Buddhist perceptions, it's not just come within us in this life, it's from the beginningless, right? And it is one of the very easiest to adapt with that negative emotion, like attachment, right? We all have that kind of different level of attachment, right? So, so just the kind of like little amount of attachment is not very harmful, and the nature of attachment itself is it's not a kind of like black and white. Yeah, it's but if you can't control it, the attachment, right? Then if it go beyond our control, then it can be kind of become a big causes of troubles, the problems, right? We can see when if we investigate it in it, right, in our life in our day-to-day life, right? If we investigate it, we have a lot of troubles, right? We have a lot of problems. But if we go try to look in forward or kind of like looking deeper, then there were lots of the most of the causes are their own attachment, right? So that's why we really have to control it, right? As much as possible, we have to make it weaker, make it less, the level of attachment, we have to make it less and less and less. Yeah, and as much as possible, we have to avoid from that, right? Yeah, and also we have to think why we have to do that, right? Why we have to, right? That's really important. Investigation is very important, and analyzing through that way, you can see it clearly, right? Yeah, that's really important. Otherwise, uh, just just one person give a teaching and you just without investigation, without analyzing, just believe it. It's even you believe it, but it's not that strong. It's not much effect on yourself, right? So you have to do it. Once you kind of like someone teach about to training our mind, about to controlling, about to dealing with the emotions, you don't need to believe it from the beginning. You can use the methods what they teach, right? The methods you can use it. So when we do investigating in the reality, right, to understand the reality, we always have to use that from the Indian great master. They call it the four types of reasoning, four types of reasoning. That's a very important method, right? Because when you do investigate it in one object or one things, that's really you have to understand the method, right? How we have to investigate it, right? Just randomly thought or like that, just want to investigate, you can't investigate it well. So it's important to understand the way of investigating on the object or the things. Yeah. So then if you can do that from that types of the method, right methods, then it's help you to understand the reality. Yeah. So there are the popular that very popular the methods mentioning in from it's come from the master to master from Indian great masters. They uh, the what's they mentioning that four types of reasoning by the nature, reasoning by nature, and reasoning by the actions, and reasoning by the logical reason, right? Logically reason, and reasoning by the interdependent, the dependent. Yeah, these are the four types of reasoning. Yeah. So example, first one, it called a reasoning by the nature. It means that the fire burns always up, right? Upward. And the water always come down. That is just a nature. That's a natural phenomena, right? That's just a nature, right? And fire burn everything, right? That's the nature of that action. The nature of fire that acted as burn everything. That's the action, right? And the reasoning by the logical reason is like that. Why it is the things? Example like one things. Why it is impermanent? Because it is produced by the causes and effect, right? which is depend on the causes and effect. That all things are the productive things are impermanent. That is the reasoning, that is investigating by the logical reason, right? Yeah. And the reasoning by the dependent, interdependent. Yeah. So the example like cause and effect is interdependent. The effects is depend on the causes, and the causes also depend on the effect, right? So that's how it works. Yeah, so we always have to investigate whatever you want to investigate. We always have to use these four methods. It's really helpful, right, to see the reality of the phenomena, right? So in your own life, right, if something happens, we always have to think in deeper level. Then it helps you to understand it clearly. Then it's help you to understand the, if you want to solve something, whatever issues that you can solve well, because you see the right causes, right? And you know how to overcome that. It helps. So that's why we have to train our mind, right? That's why we have to practice. Yeah, practice on those great qualities like compassion, loving kindness, right? And because we all have that some level of the affective emotion, right? Everyone have individuals have different level of emotions there. Sometimes some people have a very strong attachment there. Because of the attachment, it brings a lot of problem. Sometimes people have that issue because of the anger. They lots of anger because of that, lots of problems, right? Bring lots of problems. So like that individual have a different level of different amount of negative emotions there. So many great master, what they advises us, each individual have some certain level of the or strong level of emotions there. You should first to control that. You should first to overcome that one you have the strongest one. Yeah, once you can do that, overcome the strongest that negative emotion, then it really helps you to a little easy to overcome on other negative emotions, right? Because you don't have a very strong level of amount on the emotions, negative emotions there. Like if someone have a very strong anger, right? If you can control anger and other emotions, a little easy compared to that, because you don't have a very strong powerful emotion, negative emotion. So it will be easy for you to overcome. Yeah, so that's the way how we have to deal with the negative emotions. Okay. Yeah. So so you know that you all may have some kind of vows that whenever you have receiving teachings, you may receive some vows. Most of the vows that the self liberation vows, self liberation vows is more focused on the physically and virtually, right? That you controlling your physical attitude, right? Because compared to mind, the physical attitude is a little easier to control it, easier to overcome. So that's why first we have to train to overcome the physical attitude, that we should have a good attitude, right? Yeah, control our behave like that, change, try to change our attitude, right? After that, we have to focus on the mind, because compared to this, mind is much harder to control it, harder to understand. So that's why we have to further studying and practicing, and on experiment is very needed. Yeah, because uh, many great master, they always have same advices on that. You can't control everyone, right? If you try to control everyone, or if you try to change everyone, that's not possible. You can't change. But if you can change yourself, right, then it's same as change everyone, right? Because whatever the others, right, criticize or abuse or whatever, it's nothing effect on you, nothing effect on you. Yeah, it seems like change everyone, right? If you try to go out and to change everyone, you can't change. Everyone have different disposition, different understanding, right? Different perception, different view. Yeah, if you try so hard, but it's nothing works. It nothing, it's nothing like that possible to get what you want, right? So always have to look on yourself. Yeah, because we can change ourselves through the training mind. right? Because we all have a same potential if we try hard, right? Because we just not yet recognize our the own mind, the nature of own mind. Nature of mind is very much kind of like everything is possible. That potential we have that we can have that we have that seed of enlightened or liberated, right? Because it all depends on the training, right? If we not train, then we can't, right? So that's why we really should have a try to have a basic foundation, good understanding about the reality, about to see the value of the positive emotion. That's really important. If you can't see the value of the positive emotion, then we not try to have it, to achieve it, right? We not try. If we not try that, and then we can't have all those great qualities. If we don't have a great qualities, and if we're not very familiar with all those great qualities, then it's not possible. We are not possible to achieve it, right? So then it's finally we are not able to have a great peace, a great happiness, right? Yeah, so because we all want to have a great happiness, so therefore we really have to more focus, more concern about the emotion systems, right? As much as possible we have to, because it's not easy. It's not easy for the beginner. Beginning is quite difficult, but as a nature, as much as we try to engage in all those the great qualities, it will become easier and easier and familiar. The familiarity is very important in the first step. We have to make it become familiar with all those emotions, positive emotions, right? Then it will be easy, right, to understand. Yeah, once you really see, once you have a really great that conviction yourself that you really see the benefit, then it will work, right? So that's why it's really important to learn about the emotion systems, and as much as possible we should engage in more and more in positive energy, positive emotion, to enhancing and developing your inner peace, right? Inner peace is the most important, right? The physically well or everything is important, but most important is the inner peace. If you don't have an inner peace, then physically whatever you have, you can't have really enjoy it. You can't have that once you don't have a peace in mind, peace inside, right? So that's why we really have to more concern about the emotion system. The mental health is the most important than physical health. Yeah, so that's why we have to practice. It doesn't matter whatever you the kind of like His Holiness always give that advice that it doesn't matter you are the believer or non-believer, whatever. It doesn't matter. And if you are believe in the different religion, it doesn't matter at all. Because as much as possible, we have to. Everyone have a same common message that ultimate happiness, right? So for that, we all have to practice on compassion and loving kindness. Because without this, they have no way to bring a peace on self, right? So that's why this same message. It doesn't matter. You don't need to become the certain religions that when you practice on compassion and loving kindness. No, that is a common practice for everyone, right? Whoever want to be happy, because this is the only the ultimate cause for bring peace, right? So that's why we really have to more concern about all those great qualities, right? Yeah. So and in the previous class we talked about the economity, right? Practice on economity. The economity, it's kind of like firstly balancing your emotion, right? So when we do practice on economity, we should first focus on whom? The neutral person, right? Because we have to balancing on that the attachment and everything, right? So as a naturally we have a lot of attach with your nearly ones, right? Close ones, with your loved ones. We have that very strong attachment with those people. So if you focus on those people, you can't practice on economity. You can't have that balancing, right? So that's why when we practice on economity, it's more important you should focus on first the neutral person, right? And neutral person is not it's like the shamatha meditation. It's not that when you think about neutral person, it just focus on that person. It's not like it's nothing work. It nothing work. Here we have to that much part of the analytical meditation, that you have to think think on the reason, the logical reason. So now I already mentioned about the four types of reasoning, right? Yeah, you have to use that method to look at, right? If the thing is just the kind of like nature things, it's just by the nature, the reasoning by the nature, it's easy, right, to understand, right? It's just a nature. There were no other explanation, right? Kind of like the fire burns upward and the water comes down. It's the nature of the phenomena. That's all, right? That's all about the explanation about that. And and other one, mostly we have to think reasoning by reasoning by the action, how it works, right? So like anger we have to reasoning by that action, the reasoning by actions. When it anger arises within us, it's bring happiness to yourself. Yeah, when it anger arises, right? Sometimes people might be happy at the moment when you anger and when you fight, and if you want, kind of like if you can defeat that what's the person, or you might feel happy at the moment, but it's not really the can be causes for bring that real happiness afterward. Because of that, it lead you into other problem, or because of that, you might have a lot of regret afterward when anger goes down, comes down, right? Anger arises at a one time, but it not stay there at same level, right? It goes down. When it goes down, then you may have a lot of regret for yourself, your action, right? So it might most of the time it's lead in the other problem. So the action, reasoning by the action is it works here, most of like that, reasoning by action and the interdependent. These two are very important method into in whenever we do investigation, right? So these two, the interdependent and the actions, how it works, right? So the positive emotions like compassion, right? So we think further in the compassion. What is the nature of compassion? The nature of compassion is itself is wishing for everyone, or wishing for one person that literally that free from suffer, free from that trouble, right? Whenever you have a compassion, you never have that kind of hatred toward that person, right? Because the hatred and the compassion can't be accessed at a one time. Yeah, it's the opposite of, yeah, the what's it, the yeah, opposite, so can't be accessed at one time, right? So we have to, in order to enhancing the positive emotion, right? Enhancing the positive emotion, we have to reduce the anger and the hatred and everything. It goes down. Yeah. So whenever you have so much anger on yourself or others, then you can't be happy. You can't have those great qualities, the compassion and loving kindness at all, because these two are absolutely opposite. So it can't exist at same time, right? Yeah. So through the actions, the reasoning by actions, we have to see, right? The anger always bring a unhappiness, not a happiness. Okay. Yeah. His Holiness always said that anger, they were nothing sure about that. It can harm others, right? If you're weaker, that other person is much stronger, then you can't do much. Even you angry so much, right? Angry so much, you can't do much. But it's definitely harm to yourself. Because of that, at that moment, you can't have a peace, right? Yeah, because of unpeace, because of kind of like anger, your physically also go down. The situation of your physically also go down, right? Because all related. Because of that interdependent, your physically level and your mentally level all dependent each other, right? It's really much, very much. It's depend on each other, right? So that's why as much as you can, when you have mental peace, then you physically also have a more benefit, can have more benefit, right? You can be healthy, like that. So that's why it's really important to what say use those methods whenever you going to investigate. It's really helpful, right? So the economity, when we practice on economity, we always have to look at for the neutral person, and we have to think more reason, right? more reason. As much as possible, if you think on more reason, it will help you to have a great conviction or great understanding about that. Once you have a great understanding about it, it gives you a kind of like very much energy yourself to practice, right? Practice that. Then it's really helpful, right? Otherwise, when you don't have a fully understanding, then even you do something, even you try to engage in or try to practice, but you can't because you don't have that strong energy inside, right? That's why we really have to think. Yeah. So as much as think, it will become a clear and clear. Yeah. Because all the positive emotions are very have a very solid base, solid foundation, right? As much as we go, we investigate, it's become clear and clear and clear. Yeah. So you can see the lots of reason there why we have to practice on all those, right? And through own experiment is very important. In day by day, you can practice on compassion and you can check on yourself. Yeah, as long as you have that, you can check like that. As long as you, or when you have the compassionate mind, it bring happiness or kind of like trouble. You can check on that level. It's easy to understand, right? Yeah. So as much as possible, it's really important to engage in all those great qualities. Practice on, continually practice on compassion and loving kindness, because it's not mean that one day practice on compassion and tomorrow you can have a great result there. It's nothing like that, because it's all depend on that your effortness, right? Until we achieve that, we have to practice on, because even though the bodhisattvas and the great beings, even when they achieved everything, but still afterward they have to work on, the action is that they will continue to work on the all sentient beings. That is the job, right? That is the thing that we have to do, right? So even though we achieve it or not, but as long as we can practice on compassion and everything, that's really great benefit. Great benefit. We can be happy as long as we live, right? We can be happy. We have a more peace in mind. Yeah, so that's really helpful. So that's the way of life we have to spend, right? It's really important. So I want to share a little about myself, that here the talking about that experience, because sometimes it's depend on the environment, right? By naturally, right? Like for me, I was joined the monastery very young age, and I grew up until now, I grew up in monastery. So I grew up in very good environment, right? That good environment give even though I not try very hard and practice and everything, but the environment give me that good kind of like that good energy and everything. It's little easy for me because I grow up in good environment. So sometimes it's depend on the environment, right? Because here sometimes you might not have that environment, so you might need little harder to yourself to carry on practice, because you don't have that very favorable conditions there, right? The environment. So yeah, because you always have to work, always have to go to the office and like that, you might not have much time for yourself. So the environment is not same as us, right? But as long as you have that energy or the enthusiastic in practice, then you can do that. Yeah, it's all same, because everyone have a same potential inside. So it's just depend on the effort, your effort, right? It's really important. Yeah. Mm. The one way, the definite assurance is that everyone have that same ability. It just depends on that your effort and your actions, and it's as much as you can participate it in the real practice. That's all about. Otherwise, everyone have a same potential. So many great masters say that if you can do really well, the enlightenment is in your palm. Yeah, it's all depend on yourself. You can do that or can't, don't, right? It's really important. So it's not depend on that who you are. It's not depend on who you are, right? It's not necessarily to be a monk or geshe. It's not like that. Even someone have become a monk, but if they can't do good practice, right, they can't achieve anything. It's same. So it's really depend on own effort. So we shouldn't lose hope. We shouldn't lose hope. Many people have that kind of thought that we can't do that because it's really hard and everything. Saying like that, it's not like that. It's really depend on your effort. As much as you have that great effort, you can achieve it. So we really in the middle of the practice, we shouldn't lose hope. Yeah, until we achieve that, right? Yeah, so that's the way of practicing. It's really important. So as we earlier that talk about the economity, for economity, we have to focus on the neutral person and think about the reason, everything to come down to reduce the negative emotion, right? Negative emotion and generate the compassion and loving kindness. And we have to practice that until it's something that connected with your mind, right? Something it moves your mind, and then we can afterward we can go into the next step. Next step is about compassion. We have to practice some compassion. So the compassion, the nature of compassion is that wishing for everyone free from suffering, right? Yeah. Actually, they have in compassion, they have a two level: the compassion and the great compassion. Great compassion. Compassion toward your loved ones, right? Compassion toward all sentient beings. They have a two different compassion there, right? Compassion toward loved one is kind of it little easy to compare to the compassion towards all sentient beings, right? So the compassion towards all sentient beings, we call it great compassion. Yeah, which the bodhisattva they can have that compassion, but other one here practice and the solitary realizer they don't have that. They don't have that compassion towards all sentient beings. So they have a two different level of compassions there. But the nature of compassion is that the free from suffering, right? Free from suffering, and they have two different compassions. That one is wishing for having a good things for others, and one is that actual put yourself in action, engage in the activities that you work for that. They have two different, right? Work for others and the wishing for others. They're two different, right? So the first one is the wishing for others. You're not actually engaging in the activities that helping for others, right? Just simply have that good thoughts for others, but you're not engaged in the activities. But afterward, we should, as much as possible, we have to engage in the activities that what we can help for others. Yeah, that is the greater level that uh, you are engaging in the great activities. Okay. Yeah. Afterward, we have to do that. Okay. Now I'm going to read little uh, because in previous class I couldn't read at all. Yeah. Mm. So I think in English, it's here the identifying the nature of suffering, identifying the nature of suffering. In English, the identify the nature of suffering. 닝지 디니 셈진 둥에와 탐지 둥에 대단 저어드비 넘버 체인노스 감슴베 셈진 탐지니 둥에니 넘버 숨지 7% 둥에와 다 임비 디치 셈진 탐지라 대곰버 차데 디다레시 셈진 냐와 비 셈진 강다 임바 디다니 주미치지 유르는 차war라 소비 둥에 나소지 조시와 코나이노 시 좀된데지 까체도스 대신도 이다 남자 파체시도 미세비 때보다 꼼비 둥에지 매감비 루시도 둥에와 망부 냥오 시 까체도 둔드 남자 찍라 찍 사와다 tro아다 쇠바다 넘버 세와라 소비 둥에 넘버 망부 녀와 코나 나모 미 남자 되바 용수 초아 초에 폰에 찍라 찍고하다 네바시바다 두바다 자와다 미두바다 체바다 우폰에 주어라 소비 둥에 빠도메바 냠수녀와 나모 Mm. Mm. No, it's the pen of poverty. I mean, you need to practice this comparison. Medupana, upon jury. Yeah. So I just there at the as well as the pen of poverty. as well as the pain of poverty. Yeah, so in the first, it's in that the nature of compassion, as I earlier said, that the nature of compassion is wishing everyone for free from suffering. Okay, so now when we practice on the compassion, mm, compassion is really important to think about other suffering, right? Because the nature of compassion is a free from suffering, right? So therefore, we have to understand what are those suffering, the level of suffering, different suffering, right? So the three realms, the desire realm, form realms, and formless realms, there are all different kind of sufferings there. So each of the realms that we have to think about the suffering. So example like desire realms, right? In the desire realms, they have a human, animal, and the hungry ghost, right? Everyone there. So we have to think about the suffering of animals, right? Suffering of animals. Suffering of animal is that they kill each other, fight each other, and eat alive each other. So that's we really have to put ourselves in their place. Then we have to think how much it suffers, right? Yeah. So it's really important when we think about the other suffering, it has to make something effect on our mind. That's kind of like feeling inside, that life feeling, right? Because that's really important. That's the real compassion when you have that feeling, right? Otherwise, that's the reality is that right now we know everything. Most the kind of like the animal suffer of animals and the others, whatever. We all know that the suffering, the cause of suffering, but it's nothing kind of like make move to our heart, move our heart, right? We can be very kind of like simply live happily like that. Even we heard all those things, it's nothing much effect on our mind. That's really lack of practice on compassion. Because of we are lack of compassion practice on compassion. We couldn't have that kind of lovely feeling, right? So this is really important, thinking about other suffering. And also the suffering itself, they have three types of suffering. The suffering of pain, right? Suffering of suffering, the changeable suffering, and the progressive suffering. Suffering of suffering means that feeling, the worst feeling, right? Kind of pain of feeling that animals and human beings, we all have that. Suffering or suffering means something hard on your physical body or something hard to your mentality that you feel that pain, right? That we call it the suffering of suffering. It's quite easy to recognize as suffers, right? But in second, the changeable suffering, that's a little harder to recognize that as a suffering compared to the first one, right? Changeable suffering means mostly it's like a kind of enjoyment or the happiness at the moment, but it can be caused to the other suffering, or it changes to the suffering itself. That's called we call it a changeable suffering, right? Changeable suffering. Yeah. So the momentarily happiness or the temporary happiness, all are the changeable suffering. It can be caused to other sufferers. So that's why it called a changeable suffering. So most harder to recognize it as a suffering. That's we call it pervasive suffering. That not easy to recognize it. Pervasive. What is the meaning of pervasive, right? Pervasive means that it's kind of like, it's not pain. When we talk about the pain, it can be in the part of the body. If your finger hurts something, that we can pin out that I have a pain here, right? The pervasive suffering, you can't pin out like that. Yeah, you can't recognize like that. Pervasive means it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Because of that, pervasive means it produced by the afflicted emotion and the bad karma. Bad karma, right? Whatever we suffers, because everything that's the productive things or whatever things happening in our life, it all because it's depend on the causes and the conditions. Without causes and the conditions, nothing can produce, nothing can exist like that, right? The productive things, nothing can our productive thing can exist, right? All depend on the the afflictive emotions and the bad karma. Bad karma means bad action, bad deeds, right? If we do something bad, then the results, definitely the results, yeah, they are bad. Yeah, if we do something bad, then we expect or something that good things happen. We can't have that because the cause itself bring just the bad things. Yeah, can't bring a good things, right? Yeah, so that's why we call it a bad deeds, bad actions, bad karma is that. And it the bad deeds alone it can't produce. So it always has to come within the afflictive emotion, right? Emotions, afflictive emotion. These two these two combined come together and produced. So that's why our physical body or our this body it produced by the afflictive emotion and the bad for say the human being is not because of the bad deeds, it's the good deeds because bad deeds can't produce the human being like this. We say that a precious human being, right? Why we have to say that? Why we call it a precious? Because this in this life we have a lot of opportunity. We have a lot of opportunity that be better for yourself, right? Make better. And we have an opportunity that we can always engage in the good practice, that we can bring ultimate happiness. We can achieve that. So that's why we call it a precious life, precious human being, right? When we have that, all those conditions, we call it a precious. Otherwise, if you don't have those opportunity and it's not a precious, it's nothing precious. It's just a human being, ordinary human being. Yeah. When someone had those great opportunity to participate in the great activities, yeah, and opportunity to have a practice yourself in as much as possible, that's we call it the precious human being. So that's why we have to really see that precious life and understand, recognize it as a precious. Then we shouldn't kind of like waste the time, yeah, because of the impermanent, right? The life itself is the impermanent. It's not a permanent, right? We shouldn't take anything as a granted, right? When we have an opportunity, we have to grab it, right? We have to grab that opportunity and we have to do that. Yeah, practiced. We shouldn't think like the His Holiness always say that, and many master always they say that we shouldn't think like that. I'll do tomorrow. Yeah, I'll do tomorrow. That is a part of the laziness, right? If we're lazy, then our lifespan is too short. It's nothing assured there how long we live. So that's why whenever we have a time, whenever we could do something, we can do something, right? We're able to do something, then we always have to do it. Yeah, when we have that chances. So that's why the precious human being is not easy to find. Yeah, because it's all dependent on the many great deeds and those, yeah, because of that it's not easy. So we always, whenever we have that great the precious life, then we always have to use it properly and don't waste it, right? Yeah, so as much as possible, we have to think about the suffering, the level of suffering, right? Pervasive suffering. So that's the reason when the animal they have a lot of suffering, level of suffering there, and through that way, we really have to generate compassion and compassion. Yeah. And also thinking about the hell, right? Hell realm, hell realm. Also in the hells, they will because of their deeds, right? Because of their bad deeds, it's really they have a lot of suffer compared to the like worldly the human being is nothing compared to their suffer, nothing compared to their suffer. There's a very what say the great suffers there, lots of suffers there, right? So we have to think in their level of suffer, right? If we if we born in there, if we are in there, how much suffer it is, right? So you really it's important to have that kind of life feeling inside yourself, right? Through that way we can generate the compassion, and also the hungry ghost at the in Sanskrit, what say the peta. They use the words the peta, the hungry ghost. Hungry ghost is because of the misery, because um, it's one of the because the reason why they have a that suffers, why they have to born in that place because of the misery. Misery means stingy or misery that you can't even you have so much, but sometimes we can't use or we can't help others, right? We are very much thinking about own self, right? Yeah, that is the wrong view. We have that just thinking about yourself alone. You can't like rich. They have a lots of jewels and everything, but they can't use it. They can't use it. They don't have that power, that ability to use it, right? Even someone they offer, kind of like offer, they can't have it. Yeah, because of their bad deeds, their bad deeds. When we are talking about prosperity, right? Prosperity that we really have to understand now that as much as possible to help others, right? And sharing. It's not mean that you have to give something for others. If you don't have anything to give, it doesn't matter. It just you can sending a good wishes and a good prayer to them and good thoughts. That also can be a part of the generosity, right? So it's really important. If you don't do any practice on generosity, we can't have that really the prosperity. Prosperity is the result of the generosity. So that's why. Otherwise, and also one reason why they are born in the born if they not purified at least based on the morality, something that they have to stick with the good morality. If they don't have any, or if they break the all morality, or if they don't have any good morality, then they can't be they don't have ability to be born in the higher realm like human beings. It's not easy, right? So that's why at least we have to practice on that morality. The common morality is that 10 morality there, right? 10 morality is very important to control your harming others, right? Through the physical body, physically and virtually, we have to we have to stick that morality, right? We shouldn't harm others by physically and virtually. We have to keep no harm to others by physically and virtually. Those are the morality that if we keep that morality in our life, then we don't need to worry about that rebirth in the good place. Like we can easily rebirth in the human life when we have that morality. At least we should have that morality. Okay. Without that, then we might be born in the lower realms. Then if we born in the lower realms, then we can't have that great opportunity like now, right? If we born in the animal, we don't have that opportunity. We can't have. If we born in the hungry ghost like a lower arms, then we can't have that opportunity. Even in that place, we created. Yeah, impossible. Once we born in the lower arms, then it's almost not possible to come back, right? So that's why really once we have that great that precious human being, we really have to stick on that good morality, keep a good thoughts and compassionate mind, right? As much as possible, physically can generate the peace of mind, right? So that's why it's really important to understand the level of suffering there, because it helps you to have that like feeling, and really it helps you to developing or cultivated great mastery and generating the compassionate mind, right? So that's really important. Yeah, so here it all says that think about the suffering of animals, and think about the suffering of health, and think about the suffering of hungry ghost, right? And until it moves your mind, moves your heart, right? It's not like that. Just reading and understanding is not enough, right? We have read that all the suffering, but it's nothing move our heart, right? We have to think as much as possible that until it moves our heart, right? That's something feeling inside, right? You can see that many great master, like His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all other great masters, whenever they share something like that, they always have a tears in their eyes, right? They they can't control it. It just come down. That great practice inside. It's not just kind of a pretending. It's not a pretending at all. It's just come by naturally because of their great practice. So that's the example, great example for us how we have to do practice. Yeah, we should have that kind of feeling inside, right? Not just reading. Yeah, when we're reading, we just read all and we know everything. Oh, animal, they have a suffering. Oh, health, they have a suffering, but nothing moves inside. Then it's not much effective, right? So as much as possible, we should think in again and again, again and again, then until it moves our heart, really. Then you can, what say, believe it as you're quite good at practicing, right? That's really important. And many people have some kind of an experience at meditation, but it's not much important to in your attitude and the way of thinking. That's it's really effective, right? And that's the most important. Otherwise, sometimes you do meditate, see something like that. That's the can be is nothing sure about. If you can, if you see yourself that changing in yourself. Oh, before I'm not like I was not like that. Now I've changed a lot. Before I can't tolerate it with others. Now I can tolerate others. Before I have a lot of jealousy. Now I don't have a jealousy. Before I had so much a real great example of yourself. Through that way, you really can understand yourself. Now you are quite good at practice. But the most important, what we have to think for practitioner, we never ever kind of like whenever you have that great practice, and you don't need to say someone that I have that ability, I have that changes in yours, because that's kind of like bring yourself kind of like pride. Little pride is okay. That appreciate yourself, okay. But when you share with others, it's lead in other way. Much pride is not a good pure Dharma practice. Practice. It can't be practice. Pure practice is nothing rely on anything. You shouldn't rely, just do yourself. And as much as possible, if you do practice everything secretly, it's very powerful. You don't need to share anyone that whenever you reach something level, you just keep it, just carry on, just carry on that. Because we are as a human being, as a natural to yourself, that you can do a good practice, carry on good practice. So that's why you can do just simply yourself. And you can investigate on yourself. And when you see something good changes in there, you can be happy for that. You can appreciate for yourself. Oh, now I'm really good. And now that's really makes you have a great interested into further practice, right? Going further practice, deeper, 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 right? Yeah, so we have to practice and study and learn until we're at an enlightenment or the liberations. That until that we have to practice, right? Yeah, so it's really important to move on. It's better to not just say, just tell everyone that wherever you reach that the level of practice. It's not necessarily to share everyone. It's not necessarily really. Just by yourself, you do practice as much as someone prays. Just keep it as an appreciation, right? You think yourself. His Holiness always said that whenever he get an award and everything, he said that, oh, I just see that as a good sign for my kind of my deeds that are really helpful to the society like that. That's the really great way to keep it as simple as like that. Yeah, to control your ego and everything, right? Or that's the way of practicing, way of practice. Have a great impact in yourself and great development. Really, once you have really that great quality, then you don't need to worry about anything, that you really have that ultimate happiness to yourself. Whatever things happening around you, it does not mean that when you achieve something like that, everything changes. Not, it's not like that. Even not everything is changes, but you are changes yourself. That when you changes yourself, when you changes, then you can see everything is a positive. Whatever things happening, you can see everything just a positive way. Once you can do that, then always peace there, always peace, right? Even in troubled times, critical times, you can be just peace at that moment. And that is the power of practice, power of the emotion, and the power of practice. Yeah, so that's the way of practicing. Okay. So now today we just, I think, yeah, time, right? Yeah, so we keep here and continue in the next class. We can talk about the great compassion and everything. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now Q&A. Yeah, question. Anyone have any question? Feel free to ask. Or something not clear, then you can ask about it. Yeah. Next time, I think we can talk more about the dependent origination. Okay, 12 links of dependent origination. Yeah. Mm. 10 morality is the physically, they have a three physically, right? And that sexual misconduct, for that we have to abstain from that. That lie, big lie. It's not just a small lie. There is a small lie happen in our life, right? Sometimes, but it's high ranking levels because of some vows that I'm a master, so that's why I have to go in that. So the lying, it's considered as like that big lie. Is even I don't have any power. I don't achieve any power. If I say purpose of having a many disciple or some other purpose, if I say that I achieved bodhicitta, I achieved or I realized the direct realization of the emptiness like that. If I say like that, then I break the vows. Yeah, that is not allowed, right, to do that. So the big lie. And the dharma deceive words that which is purpose of that. Yeah, kind of like if they're good friends, we say something and they just get angry each other like that. So we can't do that. That's with deceiveness, right? Deceive on the words, and the harsh words. Sitsu means harsh words. Yeah, because it's important to abstain from the harming others, right? So if we use the harsh words, it's harm others. So that's why absent from the harmless, that the uh, shouted and the angry like that. Okay, and the ngakchil means uh, it's like the unnecessary, unrelated words, unrelated talk. When we talk about just the random things and unnecessarily, and just spending kind of like of time unrelated, that considered to the that for one, that is just unrelated talk. Okay, and so now they have a mind, but they have a three that actually avoid. Nafsan means anger. The nafsan means keeping kind of like bad thought to others, keeping yourself the bad intention to others. That is the we call it in Tibetan nafsan. It's kind of like inside that just the bad thoughts on others, right? And nuisen means that actual you want to harm others. You want to harm others, right? You are thinking about harming others. That we call it a nuisen means that harming others. And lokta means it's a wrong view. That's the wrong view. When you have a wrong view, wrong perceptions like that, wrong view like that, they have a worse wrong view is the not belief in the causality. You are not believe in the cause and effect, not believe in the causality. That is the one considered one of the worst view. Yeah, because when you have that kind of thought, you are not believe in the causality, right? Then it's not possible for you to do anything, right? Good in good practice like that. It's all because of the. It's important to believe in the causality. First, you learn, even though you understand it, but you are not believing that. Yeah, so that's the very worst view, the wrong view, right? Yeah, yeah, the wrong view. Mhm. Those are the tenets that morality, at least that everyone have to follow that 10 morality. 10 morality. It's very important because so now you notice that for the first one, usually in the numbers, they have physically three there, right? Physically three and virtually four. and the mentally there were three, only three there, right? So therefore, the most of those self-liberation vows and everything, it's in order to overcome or in order to control your physically and virtually that bad things, right? Virtually. But when you're taking the vows like a Bodhisattva vows and the Vajrasattva vows, the higher vows, that is more emphasized and more focused on the mentally. Yeah, it's more related with the mentally. So because it's a step by step. Firstly, that the lay people can receive that vows, the 10 vows, right? The 10 the morality is for everyone, especially for the lay people can have that vow, right? It's more the very first one. And after that, when we become a monk, like we have to receive the Novik and the Odin like that, step by step. It's all step by step that is help you to control everything, right? From the beginning, you can't control everything. So step by step, it teaches us how to control it, how to deal with the negative emotion and everything. Yeah, so that's important to follow like step by step. It's really good, right? Just jump in the higher, but we can't do that because we don't have that ability to do at that moment. When you don't have a good understanding about the basic foundation, even you jump in the up, you can't do good. So that's why it's very important to come through the practice by the step by step. It's very significant. Any other question? Okay, okay.
This Eightfold Noble Path. The first one is the right to view. What does it mean?
Sorry, can you say it again?
You know the Eightfold Noble Path?
Eightfold.
Eightfold Noble Path. The first one is the right to view. What does it mean?
Right.
Right to view.
Right view.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah. Right. So, an example like here, the wrong view, right? Wrong view is the worst obstacle, right? Worst obstacle for practicing, right? When you have a wrong view, then you are not have any interest in all those practice, right? Yeah, that's really important. So the fold number two is very important. It's the best great foundation, right? But when you don't have a right view means belief in the reality, belief in the reality that, and belief in the causality, because a system of causality, that's really important. Right view, right view also can be considered like that. You really have a intention that you want to practice, you want to learn that, right? If you don't have that view, then you couldn't have that interested into practice. Then even though whatever you teach, very important thing teach, but it's nothing works that one doesn't have that kind of belief and faith to practice in that. So the right view is very important. And also very important when we do practice that whenever you go within the people, it's important to go with the right view because our mentality is not strong enough, right? Because if we go within many people who have a lots of wrong view, then it might affect on us, it might affect on yourself because we don't have that great understanding or the great conviction yourself. So if someone says something others, it might lead you into other direction. So that's why it's really important when we do practice, it's best to go within the who have a same view, that same understanding, same interesting. That's really help you because we should have that good condition, right? The environment I talked you, I said earlier that environment, it's really helpful to us for the beginner especially. When you are at a good level, reach at the great level in practice, then it doesn't matter. Even you go within the people who have a wrong view, you can explain them and you can help them in to put in the right direction. But for the beginner, it's quite difficult. It's not very sure that you can lead them or you are going in them. And so that's why it's much safer for you to go within the right view, who have a right view. That's really much effect on yourself. Yeah, good for yourself. Yeah. Okay, sure.
What are some of the challenges for you as coming here and working with Americans? What are some of the challenges you are experiencing working with us?
Yes.
It's good. It's good question. Yeah, because here it's not my first time. I already have experience when I come first. Yeah, first is a quite big challenge for me because I don't have any kind of experience, right? To talk with the foreigners, mostly the foreigners. It's a different culture there, right? And also different kind of habit, right? So it takes me a little time to understand their way of thinking. That's really important in Buddhism. That the teaching firstly said that it's very important to understand what they're thinking, their view, right? Then once you really understand their habit and everything, it's really someone. If someone, for example, like who teaching, it's really helpful to that person to teach because you know their mindset and everything. It's much helpful for them, right? Yeah. So on the fortunately, I didn't really struck in the big trouble like that to deal with, to talk with foreigners because I really see that good culture is that really here I see everyone appreciate each other, even though we do small things, they really just appreciate. Yeah, that appreciate, I believe in that it's really from heart, right? Sometimes it can be not from really not from heart, but even though whatever, it's a very good culture to appreciate, even though very small things. And every time the Asian culture and the Western culture, there have a lot of differences there. But although they have a good culture and sometimes they have a little kind of like different culture there, but once we adapt with the all cultures, that's really helpful to for personally to me. It's really helpful, and I learned so much from that culture too. Western culture, I really learned so much from that. So I didn't have a really bad kind of experience. Yeah, so far I only have fortunate that I only have a good experience with the Western culture. Through that, I learned so much. Yeah.
I have a question. You mentioned to focus on the neutral person. I was wondering if you could say a little bit more.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes. Yeah, it's really important. So there's some like when we practice on the economity, right? Economity is firstly for the beginner, it's very good because firstly we have to balancing our emotions, right? That we have so much attachment. Sometimes we have so much the kind of like the we can say that we have sometimes we have a good thoughts, right? Good thoughts, and sometimes we have so much attachment, right? So much attachment, so much anger, right? So we have to balance that, right? In order to increasing the positive emotions, increasing the positive energy, we have to firstly we have to balance it, right? Otherwise the anger, if it is so powerful or so strong, then if we directly practice on compassion like that, it's quite difficult because you are very much that in the you don't have that great foundation there, right? A great base there. So that's why we have to make a great base first, basement like a foundation to balance first, just make it balance through the economity, right? Or the thinking, the way of thinking is same, the method is same, right? Method is same. We always have to think that everyone want to be happy and no suffering, and physically, emotionally, we are all same, right? We all have that experience, happiness and joyness and sadness, right? We all have that experience, right? So that's why something that you have that's very strong emotion like a hatred, we have to reduce that through the thinking of that, the reason, right? And if you have so much attached or so much love with the one person, also we have to level that make it come down, right? Because we have to think there is nothing specific reason that I love so much on one person because of the thinking about the old sentient beings are same as our mothers, right? Mothers, right? Once they being our mothers, they kind and love, show love and everything as dislike mothers, as same as dislike mothers, right? So like that, that makes you to reducing your anger and hatred, right? Yeah. In this life, they are not our mother, but in previous life, this mother, it can be a mother of ours in previous life. So it's the cyclic existence means rounding, right? Life to life, it's going, and our lifespan is too short. It's not that long, and changes into afterlife. That's coming like a cyclic, right? Yeah, rounding. So there was nothing really specific reason to had it so much on one person and love so much in one person. So that's why through that reasoning we have to balance our emotions, right? That's really, and then once, most importantly, that reason help us, right? Not the neutral person. For the neutral person, we have to focus, because it's a good object for us to practice on economity. Because in the neutral person, we don't have much attached, or we don't have much anger on that. So that's why it helps us to easily to balancing our emotions, right? Most importantly, the way of thinking. Yeah, as much as we think that its effect on us, and we can move into the next step, that practice on compassion. The same reason, it's very much, we are very become familiar with that reason and everything, so it's really easily to help us to practice on compassion. So that's why it's important to first practice on economity. When we do practice on economity, we have to focus on the neutral person, right, to balancing your emotion. Yeah, that's all. Yeah. Yes.
When you talk about compassion, what about compassion for yourself?
Yes.
Can you begin with that?
Yes. 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 Mm. That's the really important. Yeah. So honestly, that kind of like that little, what say, mm, culturally differences, little culturally differences, the Asian or the Tibetan or the Indian, the way of practicing on compassion, they don't have that much specific on yourself, compassion on yourself. Because as a culturally, I think it's maybe that was a little culturally difference. They don't have a much hatred on yourself. But once I visited in the UK, I met one people, or they also asked, they really have so much hatred on themselves, and I little surprised why that asking me about so much, kind of like sharing me the story, so much hatred on themselves, on the one person that herself, and I really think about, I think myself that why it happened like that. Maybe that kind of little cultural differences, but it's important nowadays. His Holiness, I heard, I received once I received a teaching from His Holiness the Dalai Lama that for that purpose, right, it's very important compassion to yourself, love for yourself, because we have to see. There was one story that Buddha's teaching, when Buddha's talk about the suffering, right? Suffering and the suffering, everything. That at that time, many the disciple they practice on the suffering, and they really had for themselves kind of like, when we talk about the suffering, then your physical body itself is like all just a suffering, right? Suffering itself, and at that time, so much had it on kind of like themselves. Yeah, and afterward, with the stating that, oh, shouldn't have on yourself, shouldn't have on yourself, and talking about the more valuable that we have to keep this precious body. It's give us a great opportunity. So once we have that, it's not sure that when we will get it again. So once we have that precious body, we always have to keep it precious it like a jewel, right? So it's really important to love ourselves. And His Holiness said that once you can't love yourself, if you have that kind of feeling, once you can't love yourself, then it's not possible to love others. It's not one if you have that problem. Yeah, one, so firstly you have to make it right to have that kind of love yourself, respect yourself. That's really important. Yeah, because if you can't overcome that kind of problem, then you can't generate that compassionate toward all sentient beings. Because of that, in order to generate the compassionate mind towards all sentient beings, we are practicing on equanimity to balancing ourselves, and after that, towards compassionate mind towards all sentient beings, right? So that's why if you have that problem to kind of like hate it yourself or not very happy with yourself, we have to make balance this first. Yeah, through the reasoning. Yeah, through the loss of reasoning, that why it's very important. because of this body give us lots of opportunity, right? Achieve. It's everything is kind of like everything is possible, right? The real practice, Dharma, real practiced on those great colleges. We don't need anything, right? In other way, the worldly lives for the physical body, we need so many things, right, to make it calm, make it happy, make it joyous. Kind of like we have to have so many things, right? But for the real practice, we don't need anything, the materialistic things. It doesn't need, right? So we just need good thoughts, right? And great deeper understanding about the reality, right? And whenever we have that kind of hatred toward yourself, we always have to compare ourselves to in other, like animal, and even in the human beings. They have a lot of people go through a lot of amount of troubles, much harder than ourselves, right? We always have to compare in that level. That's really, you can see yourself is a very fortunate, right? We might think that when we start in some troubles, we might think that, oh, I'm very unfortunate, all the bad things comes on me, like that. And because of that, we really had it yourself, and we have to just sometimes in the worst case, they suicide, like that, right? The worst case, because of that, they can't control that emotion, right? Sometimes it can be a reason of that hatred to yourself. It can't be a reason of like that you couldn't have what you want, and you think that now is nothing, what say, there's nothing importance to live, right? So you just take out yourself. It's not right. It's not right. We always have to precious. We never had it on yourself. First, we have to love. We have to precious it. We have to understand that this physical body given us all those great opportunity, right? Why we can do all those practice? Because of this body, right? Human body, it's much better than others, right? The just talking about the physically, some animals have a much stronger than us, right? But mentally, the intelligence, that what we have, no one have that. The animals and others, they don't have that. The capacity of their intelligence, man. Yeah. So it works, right? So that's why we have to use it properly, thoroughly. We have to use it properly. That what we have is something very special, that we call it a wisdom or the intelligence. Through that way, we really can achieve so much. No one can achieve in other form. Yeah, so really it's important to love yourself. It's really important. Yeah, we shouldn't have it ourselves, right? We always have to precious it. So, from the teaching, that first thing, that Tanju Tuenchewa, it's teaching there, but we're not much focused on that, because in that the different, maybe I think it's because of the little culturally, that not much focus on that, to experiencing yourself and love to yourself. It's not like that, but many, some of, even though even in at that time also they happened like that. Some really, when they practice very deeper in the suffering, that makes sometimes side effect, like that negative effect on their mind, because of their not proper understanding about that teaching. So that's why, yeah, so it's really important. Firstly, that Tantra Tuenshawa means we have to see that this human life is very precious. Because if we can't see that this human life is very precious, then we can't purchase it. We can't keep it as like we can't take all opportunity, whatever we have given in this life. Yeah, so that's really important to have a great interest in, to use it properly, because of see the value of your human lives, yeah, human body. Through that way, we can achieve everything. Through this life, we can attain enlightenment in this single life, right? When we practice in the Tantrayana and everything, it's a possible to attain enlightenment in this degeneration single life. So all it happens within this human body, right? So that's why it's really important to purchase it, yeah, and use it properly. Yeah, that's the way of, yeah, practicing. Thank you. Yeah, it's really good.
Do you think that maybe the self-loathing, pardon me, might be cultural, coming from our culture? You're coming from outside of Western culture, maybe you can see this more clearly than we can. I'm not sure if this is right or not, but it seems to me that there's a component of judgment that's deeply rooted in our culture, where people are judged, and we tend to judge ourselves, and it's an unreasonable standard, so we judge ourselves badly, then this becomes a habit of self-loathing. So do you think there's a cultural component that fosters this attitude as well?
This is really important. Yeah, self-loading and self-pressure, right? Self-pressure, because I can say that it's not a really the culturally, because that when we have so much effort or so much thinking on the successness, right? So much on like that, it's also can be sometimes precious on yourself, right? And when you have to do so many things, then it's come a kind of like overloaded on yourself. That it's also can be one pressure to yourself, right? But mm, it's actually most important to look at your ability, right? Ability is very important because if you can't kind of like teachings there step by step, because that's also depend on their own ability, right? Right, because Buddha's not teaching that this is the best teaching and the first everyone should practice that. It's not the way of practicing. It's not the way of teaching. So that's why it's important to own ability. So even in the worldly lives, if you want to do something, if you want to achieve something, it's all depend on your own ability, right? It's really, if you go according to your own ability, it will be much helpful. It will be kind of like overcome many troubles, right? Because you have that ability. Once you that, then it's nothing big problem to you, right? If that case is some other people, that can be a problem, but for you, you have that ability to do it, right? So it's go according to your own ability. That's really important, right? One thing is that, and one thing is that the what is your second part of the question?
About the cultural judgment.
Yeah. So that's the one issue that judging on yourself is like be mindful on yourself. Yeah, be mindful on yourself, because if you want to change yourself, then you have to notice, you have to recognize what you're doing wrong, right? Yeah, otherwise you can't change yourself if you accept that if you do wrong. From that moment, you have to kind of like stop that all. If you did something already, then through the regret and kind of like that's the kind of remorse, and afterward in future, I will not do that again. Through that way, you can change yourself, right? Yeah, that's really important. If you're not changing anything, even you see that action is wrong, then you can't do much, right? You can't be a better person. You can't that great quality, right? Compassionate mind, loving kindness, all comes within through the changing yourself, by the changing your changing through your attitude and the way of thinking, right? That's through that way you can change yourself. So that's why judging means not just look at back on yourself. We all have many great qualities within us, right? That we are not deliberately harming others, that we don't have a very bad intention toward others. All those are really great quality. All those can be a really seed of the compassion, seed of the loving kindness, seed of the enlightenment. We already have that, right? So when we judge on ourselves, then we also can see the many good things what we are doing. Normally, we are not much noticed, right? Judging means bad on yourself, judging all. So that's why if you judge just on others, it all the practice also can just go to the outer, not inner. Judging on have that inner peace. Inner peace come within the training mind, right? Come within the see clearly of your mentality, a level of mentality and everything. Through that way, we can have the inner peace. So that's why we have to be mindful on your attitude and be mindful on your way of thinking. Through that way, we really can have a positive mind and positive attitude. Through that way, we can really change ourselves and to be better person, right? That's the way of practicing. Yeah, so judging you is not look back on yourself. Even we do something wrong, we shouldn't upset or you shouldn't feel very much burdened with that. It's not about a burden yourself. It's not about feel very sad or yourself. It's about of that you will understand it and you can change it once you see it, right? So that's the way of practicing. Yeah, so just for it's helpful for you to understand yourself. So when people do meditation, right, and people have a lot of things that, oh, I have a lot of distraction like that, because once you focus on that, you can see that, you can aware of that's happening within you. Normally, we are not focused on that level, so we can't acknowledge that the distraction and everything. So that's help you to understand and aware of what is going on around with you. That is a good sign. When we judge or when we investigate on ourselves, we see the wrong things. If they have a wrong things, then we have to change it. Through that way, we can develop our inner peace. Yeah. Okay, so one last question.
So, what I'm hearing is that, David, maybe I think what you might be pointing at is that in Western culture, if we do something bad, we really beat ourselves up because we're an essentialist culture. So we think of things as either essentially bad or essentially good. Whereas what I'm hearing you say, Rinpoche, is that to not sort of I'm bad and beat yourself about it, but to use mindfulness to go, oh, I messed up. I'm going to use mindfulness to not do that again, to change myself. So in Eastern cultures, it's a non-essentialist viewpoint, a viewpoint that people can change and that things arise out of causes and conditions. And if we change our mental causes and conditions, then we can arise differently. Maybe? Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's really true. That's because of that. Sometimes it's not, judging yourself. Sometimes we only see so much. Sometimes people have that kind of problems that when you look at yourself, that so many wrongdoings, and sometimes we might lose our hope that I can't do anything now. It's so much there. It's not like that, because in the Kadamba Great Master, when they do investigate or judge on themselves, sometimes they use some stone, black stone and white stone, they put there. And whenever they always judge on their mind and the attitude, everything. Once they noticed that did something bad, even though it's a little misappropriate intention, they just count the black stone. Yeah, they just find that black stone. Firstly, they say that all a black stone, no white stone there. They go very deeper, not just attitude. It's also mind. Even you slightly have a little bad intention, they count as a black stone. And firstly, it's all black stones coming there. But through that mindful every day, then less by less. Then after that, it's really all the white stone. They're counting white stone there. It's really helpful to them to notice it. Right, recognize it. Otherwise, we can't recognize everything, whatever things happening in our mind, right? It's like a dream. We dream so much, but when we work out, we forget everything, right? We can't say clearly what you have a dream. We can't say clearly. It's like that. So it's really helpful. There are many different methods into keeping that good judging, good investigating, right? So it's really important. You can have a great practice, great development in yourself when you have really used all those great methods. Yeah, that's all. Maybe now it's time, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Thank you, Geisha. If you would like to make a donation for this teaching, it would be greatly appreciated by the monks and the monastery. And you can do that by calling 812-336-6807 or by emailing the center at tmbcc.kcl@gmail.com. For those of center, if you would like to make a donation, it would be greatly appreciated, and I will pass around the begging bowl. And if you cannot do so, just a prayer or a mantra is fine. I have a couple announcements. Next week, there will not be a teaching because we will have a retreat. Should I announce the retreat? Okay, on Friday, there'll be a Manjushri initiation, and on Saturday, a Vajrasattva initiation at 10 a.m. And then the retreat will start on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So if you're interested, you can contact the office. And lastly, yesterday we had a puja and we had a watermelon. That was one of our offerings. And so we have some watermelon in the kitchen. So please help yourself. There's tea and coffee in there. So thank you.
The closing prayer on page number 80, 80.
西江苏穷共强藏历南无仁波切，大所因而光明真主堂，感恩坚果国念结颂悲，我诵得见我者藏得错，成就神咒仁波切，马耶光南耶者耶。耶瓦扬巴梅尔扬，公里功德人而修，为饶为果为行愿当对我马雷中为天世王天子元素一，上流随地巴德天德一。阳光保护健儿前往，功德庄国培养对养本业色当中间，业往的大堂阶大正果，也送上边阳光堂阶。我更拉走的方法的，那些一把我的梦想，从我这些让的我也，身体中的干巴的上也，但在结果当时更刚上。人间更大的因为，三年当把道德解决解，自然更得将我生活平平。但说新年我是在的子，亚为万变放松的年年。一切赞扬都满足。
Thank you.